Welcome to Podcast This Escape, the podcast where we talk about the escape room that we escaped from in the previous episode of this podcast. Das, thank you. That was fantastic.
Glad you enjoyed it.
Oh man, there was so much going on. Okay, first things first. I love the theming of it. Like going into it, we were told Alex's bathroom threequel. And then it got thrown into merging with other rooms and extending the universe further. I didn't see that coming, and I thought that was great fun.
I needed some way to plausibly make a room that was your own design in a way, but that you did not know how to solve. And the only way I could really make that plausible was throwing in another character like Jimmy.
Well, I'm sure as you found out, that's definitely not the only way that you can have us not be able to solve things. There are plenty of things that take us a long time to get through. Because also the idea of having this initial letter that we can find, that each paragraph of it has a separate clue to different things going on. Very clever idea. The
Funny thing about that,
Yeah.
most of that letter started out as flavor text, and then I shoehorned clues into it. Like, that was typed out manually on a typewriter. I did not want to retype that if I could at all avoid it. I eventually had to retype it when I added the red in.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, I can't even imagine. Like, I haven't had to properly use a typewriter at any point in my life. And it seems like there's a lot of challenge to it when you're trying to get something definitely right.
And definitely wrong in certain ways.
Well, that too. And so, yeah, I really like the idea of being able to do that. It did mean it was hard. And I think the typewriterness adds to that, because there are certain things that you can do when you're computerizing stuff to make things stand out in different ways, or to draw your eye and draw the attention in other ways. And I assume a typewriter has fewer options for that.
Correct.
So yeah, I ended up with this. Translating which parts of the letter were important and which ones weren't went much more to puzzle hunt level than something you'd see in a physical escape room level, because it was a lot of which bits just intuitively feel like they could stand out for us, rather than like, this has been bolded, pay attention to this.
Which I didn't directly bold what you had to pay attention to. I bolded in form of the red letters around what you had to pay attention to.
That was not something that I've had to deal with before, and therefore found that very hard.
Have we not? I feel like we have done that before. The idea that like the highlight things is to look between
I don't know.
things that are different.
I don't know if we have. Or at least without something else heavily telling us so, because that's challenging. When something draws your eye, deliberately looking away from it.
Well, this is the thing that was interesting about it. It wasn't just that. It was like, this is a puzzle that would have been easier to solve if we didn't have a notebook.
Oh.
Because the first thing we did
was write
wrote
out the
down
red
all the red letters.
That's true.
And then we were looking at the red letters, which were fundamentally irrelevant. So what we had the entire, like, I was barely ever looking back at the original letter. I was looking at my list of what the red letters were.
Good point.
Right? Which is like a classic thing with the notebook, which meant for me, based on my notes, it's an unsolvable puzzle, right? The thing that I was looking at was not the puzzle.
That's
right?
true.
And it's a good example of like going back and looking at the actual original thing when you have it, rather than looking at your notes. Because by writing down every red number or every red letter, which we did immediately, right? Classic thing you have with a note, it could not be solved, right?
Yeah.
Because my puzzle did not have any of the actual information on it.
That's true.
And so it wasn't until you had to go back and look at it in place. And when you look at it in place,
Well, now that I'm looking at it.
Now that you know, once you know it, it's like, that says between.
Yes,
that says
we
was.
can
Like,
see
these
there are
very
words there.
clearly surrounded by things. It is a little bit strange, I will say, that the word between is like a clue, but it's only a clue if you've already solved the puzzle.
Well, for the having two pairs of red letters versus all the other single red letters, once you got onto the track of there's something different in that area, then you're looking more broadly, what's different in that vicinity versus all the others?
Man.
Yeah.
That's true. That is very much one of those sorts of things where, again, in a puzzle hunt, because it is very puzzle hunty in that way. You want a lot of different people in your team because some people's brains are going to make that connection right away.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this would be like, this is one of the ones that weirdly, even though it was quite complicated, would I think have been easier in a physical room. Because you wouldn't have written anything down, you would have just been holding the piece of paper and looking at it. And
Fair.
then it would have been easy to see it. Like, yeah, we sort of hamstrung ourselves
It
from
would
the
have
beginning
been.
by writing
But that's
stuff
it.
down.
I haven't seen something that difficult in a physical escape
No,
room.
it would definitely be a bit more difficult. But in structure, like, it has that like, it would be easier with a physical prop.
I feel like this is the first one in quite some time where it has taken us a long time to get our footing with working out your puzzle style.
Which, a difference between all the playtests I've done and the two of you, I was much quieter because, like, you were working things through, but it's like you were overthinking everything, but it's you weren't really getting stuck too much at the beginning. You
if you
had
say
a lot
so.
to go on. You were just like running with different ideas. They were just well overthinking most of the puzzles.
Definitely. So most of your playtests, I assume, people who know you.
Yes, I virtually almost only went with people that I know in real life instead of like listeners to the show.
I do wonder how much difference that makes.
But it's also interesting that, like,
More than I expected.
Yeah.
in certain times, it's like we're overthinking it, like thinking that, you know, like finding the word chicken and being like, okay, but what's the actual like solution? And then be like, no, it's just chicken. But then in other times, the expectation was to find like the word Alex is the key, but then there's another reference that Alex is also toast, and then toast
You
is
never
a key,
had to find
and then
that
you have
Alex
to
was the
figure
key.
out-
Right,
It's
that
just
was
you're the
entirely
key
you.
and you're toast.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm aware, unless I made a mistake, that's the only time that the contraction your appears in
That's-
anything
that's
that I
cool.
gave you. There's another place in the letter where there's a you are that's specifically not contracted.
Mm. But yeah, but like what I'm saying is this is not a complaint about the puzzle, but as in like, but that is quite complicated.
Yeah.
Like your toast, then toast the key, and then then needing to create a cipher, which was
now-
yeah, that's very much
Granted, there was the point where I was like, when I wrote out the alphabet and was trying to work out that GH, where I think I said, I don't know if I said it loudly enough for it to be in the microphone, where I said, if it's a normal one and not one of the ones where the letter changes every time. And that's exactly what it ended up being.
Yes.
that is true. Yeah.
I could have potentially tried to work from there. I don't think there's any way that I would have stumbled upon it by mistake if I had kept grinding at it.
No.
But
And that's much more like a puzzle hunt thing where it would expect you to just Google it, right? To be like, oh, I see this is a cipher. I'm going to Google a list of
kind of
ciphers
cipher
and
makes
see
sense
what
there?
matches.
My God, I've seen some puzzle hunts where they cycle things through like 3 different ciphers at once.
Yeah, right. Because they expect you. Whereas, like from an escape room perspective,
Everything will be handed to you
yeah,
because there's no
it was
expectation
almost like
of that.
you wouldn't want to do a cipher, or you wouldn't attempt to do a cipher until someone gives you a list of how ciphers work.
Yeah, and this is not for the first time, by any means, not for the first time that people have overestimated our ciphering ability.
In the notes that I'll email you after we're done, I do have a link to a cipher in the notes for if the any GMs who feel like playing this for other players feel like being nice to their players.
Oh,
Well, look, yeah, it is one of those things where it's like if you don't know the cipher, it is very, very, very difficult to figure out what a cipher's going to be.
yeah. And then in a
I mean, that's
physical
kind of the
escape room,
point.
you'll have plenty of people who have never heard of a cipher, let alone being able to work out how this specific cipher could work.
Yeah.
So that, and like we definitely know of some ciphers, but we use them so rarely. We engage in the difficult kind, the puzzle hunt kind of things so rarely that it's often not the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah. And
I like that we looked at that one and thought enough that you saw the word key and there were mixed up letters and we went, this feels like a cipher. I feel
yeah.
proud about getting to that point.
oh, yeah, it was like it's a cipher. It's going to have a key. And honestly, in my head, I think I was just waiting for like, so let's not even try and solve it because we're going to be given like what the cipher is,
Yeah.
like how to use the key. Will be somewhere in the room. They'll tell you here's how to use a key to solve a cipher because otherwise it's. And which we end up just doing through you, right? It had to just be like, now you tell us how to use the key to solve a cipher. Because without that, you know, it's a sort of like, it's the outside knowledge side of escape rooms. Like if you get into an escape room and they're just like, all right, you've memorized all the elements, right? If I just give you a list of numbers, you can tell me what the elements are. Like I'm just going to say 86, 29, 42, and you should recognize they could be elements, and you should tell me what the elements are. So no, you would wait till you find a periodic table.
Of all the things in the room, that's the one part that really needs outside knowledge, and it's the part where I was most willing to be a nice GM and just spoon feed
And
it
that's
to you.
why we do them in this format, so that the GM is there for that
because the
availability.
difference, like in this case, the way that we got how the cipher worked was just be like, how does the cipher work?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
there's a GM there to do it. But so but that's a level of complexity that was hard to then like gauge what the complexity of other puzzles were going to be.
For
so it was
sure. Like
definitely
we
a
were
little bit
all
tough.
over the place with trying to figure out what the levels were at any given moment. With that in mind, I assume that compared to any of the playtests, the order that things happened, the order that we got through things, probably scattered and varied a little.
So there was a lot of variation in order on my playtesters, but for just searching things at the beginning and getting some of the narrative pieces, you did one of the best orders that you could. There are some people who like already solved shutting off the water in the shower and a lot of the other things before finding the letter.
Oh man.
And like, there's not really a way for me to gatekeep that.
No, like as far as things go, the difficult puzzles were the only real gatekeeping for a lot of this.
It's hard to gatekeep in a bathroom where it's basically all one room.
Oh, for sure. This will be very interesting to see if the next room that comes out after this one is indeed my bathroom room. Couldn't be more different. It's amazing how that happens. Like, I didn't honestly expect them to be very similar, but it is a very stark difference. If you're looking for two very different bathrooms. This will be our landscaping, just a home styling shows where you're just browsing the catalog for the one that works for you.
Yeah, let's start a bathroom installation company that just sells various bathroom themed escape rooms that we've done on the show.
All right, yeah. I feel like there is one thing that I really want to go over again. There were some anagrams that we
didn't get all the
figure
anagrams.
out because we figured out the ones that really mattered to us. So we got the shower and the main light.
We got Showa.
We got Death and Doom, I
Death
think.
and Doom. We got Main Light.
It was Suction Elector and A flat that we were blanked on.
Yeah, A flat is so short.
Does that just play music for us?
No. A flat is fatal.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Fatal Death Doom.
My favorite tabletop RPG.
Or is this like electrocution?
Electrocution's plural.
God, of course it
As
is.
if one wasn't enough.
We were so close. I was doing that. I even thought, I went, okay, we've got electric. Well, maybe it's something similar. No, there's nothing
was
else
something
similar.
similar.
There is nothing else that could possibly be electro. Nope, it's definitely electric or nothing. All right.
So, I had just reached behind myself for a page of notes. That's why I was off camera when we were actually recording, because some of the key elements in this room are spatial, and I didn't want to give away that my brain is very spatial reasoning focused. I have all my notes spread around me in a ring of tables, and they are where they would be roughly relative to the center of the room on the tables. I have a decently long cord on the headphones, and I've just been walking around the notes as we've gone through the room.
Really?
Oh, that's hilarious.
I mean, I figure it doesn't surprise me to hear that you're more on the physical side, considering that you made these images like in life. They are not just computer generated things. You took photos of real stuff.
Yes, my
very
computer
early
graphics
on.
are not as good as
Maybe I
they
should try
would
that
need to be for this
sometime.
room stuff. It was just easier to make something physical.
I wonder if I should try that sometime, since my computer graphic skills are very subpar. But yeah, like right away we got the second image, I think, the duck tag, and I just went, this is suspiciously good.
I was happy when you said that.
And beyond that, I think my only other comment was, yeah, you came into this thinking that a lot of the more practical sides of things were going to be bill puzzles. But I think if you had asked, and we even said who is more likely to like pick stuff up and smash it and pull it apart in a room, I would have said me.
I think
There was some previous episode where like Bill figured out some way to unscrew something like immediately as quickly as I did, and that made me worry, oh, are Bill and I too much on the same wavelength and he's going to get everything right away?
Whereas, yeah, no, for me, for that, it was like the language of like, you can't touch this, it's too hot, to me goes, great, that's a puzzle. Something that we solve will reward us with heat protection. So I'm not even going to attempt to, like, it'd be wild to, because it almost feels like it would be the opposite. Like you would go, oh, I suppose you could just, why can't you just turn it with the ladder? I guess I have to give it to you. Like it almost feels like it's undercutting, like.
It feels like you're trying to be nice by not breaking the room.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, if the light, like, for example, if the light was too bright and that was a problem, the reason we had to turn the lights off wasn't to replace them with a UV, but just because, like, oh, it's too bright in here, you need to make it dim. It would have been, I would spend a long time trying to unlock the light switch rather than be like, why don't I just throw the ladder at the light and see if I can shatter the bulb? Like, I might throw it out there, but with the expectation, be like, no, you can't, you miss it. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah,
we'll
whereas
wait until.
I think I'm a hint more likely to go for that.
Yeah, maybe.
And the one time you did have to actually break something in this room, you were explicitly told, kill the plant. Like, you also killed the shower curtain, but
that was an accident.
You could get to that shower curtain if you had more carefully examined it to find the tag. The having you destroy it was my way of hinting you over to finding the tag.
Ah, fair. Makes sense. All right. Beyond that, look, I think. Is there anything else that we didn't notice, like with anagrams, anything like that? Anything,
so.
Any Easter eggs or fun facts or just stuff?
There was one thing that was odd a little bit about the tag, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the tag is, like...
Where is it?
It was interesting, because I don't know if the tag is necessarily necessary, if that makes sense. In terms of, like, it gave us the word chicken, but we kind of already knew there was a missing chicken, and the note said, first aid, it's his missing rooster. Like, is it just to make us, like the note kind of said the first aid is going to be the word. I
mean, look, are you saying potentially we could have done it without the shower tag? I guess. Would it have taken us even longer than it already did? Oh boy, would it?
Maybe.
It's two ways to get to the same thing.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I think it was a good director because it definitely, like, we paid attention to the word chicken. We just didn't know what we were doing with it and didn't realize that it on its own was important.
Yeah. I suppose it was one of these tough ones because it was like, we put the word chicken there because we sort of knew that there was already a missing chicken. And so then the answer was, now, you know, there's a missing chicken. So it's a little bit like, I wonder if especially because, like, we count all up, and it did help to count it up and just to note to myself that chicken was 7 letters.
There were a bunch of different words that you were checking the letter length on, but getting to chicken is 7 letters took longer than ruling out other words.
I will tell you, I can tell you the exact reason. Because in my head I went, how many letters are in chicken? 6. Damn, doesn't fit. And then I moved on until we did the full count later.
Yeah, I think we noticed that came up a couple of times of you counting things that didn't quite end up working.
100% I counted chicken as having 6 letters in my head and therefore didn't even mention it. I didn't even mention I was counting it because I did the count. I went, damn, it's only 6 letters. But yeah, for you making it, like, obviously you put a lot of effort into making all the physical versions of things and the design, like, and you say you didn't want to retype your letter too many times that you ended up having to retype it. How iterative was it for you? Did you start working, like, in paper until you were really definite that they were going to be the final versions, or did you have most of it done from the first time you thought about it?
I think the very first time that I ran this room, there were fewer puzzles in it and 0 visual exhibits. So a lot of the times when I listen to Escape This Podcast, I'm either cooking or driving, and I can't, like, look at visual exhibits at the time. So I thought,
yeah, of course.
Can I make a room that is friendly to that kind of listener? I realized very quickly, no, it is very helpful for the players to have something to look at.
Yeah.
It definitely can be.
Second time I ran this, there were some visual exhibits. And then built up from there, do a few play tests, add a few puzzles, change a few, so on and so forth.
Right. And what was your favorite part? What's your shining light of this room that you feel happiest with?
Probably happiest was the time that I typed the final version of that letter without making a mistake, because that took so many tries.
Fair. Yeah, because you would have had to type the whole thing out, leaving space for the red letters, then change the ink ribbon and go back.
I have a ribbon with 2 colors of ink,
Oh,
and
that
I just flip a
helps.
lever to switch between the 2. But there were so many times where I would flip it once and not back,
Yeah.
or forget to flip it, or just make a generic typo and now I need to restart.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's brutal.
If I tried to type over something that I messed up, you would think that was a clue.
Oh,
Yes.
100%.
Absolutely. I have definitely seen in real escape room something that's just been misspelled or mispunctuated or whatever, and then just having to stare at it and go, I don't know, do I underestimate these people and think that it was an honest mistake, or is this something? I don't know how to trust this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right. Even noticing, oh, that's the word band instead of band. It's am I being incredibly rude?
The fact that was happening so early on made me really worried because, I didn't know at that stage that it was a real typewriter thing, and therefore a buttload of effort had to go into it. So it could have just been you typing quickly and not thinking about it.
Yeah, and it's really, it's a little difficult when you're there with the person because, the first one I noticed was the game is a foot, and I'm like, well, that is wrong.
But it could also be an honest
But
mistake.
maybe they're wrong, and I don't want to spend too much time being like, well, no fool would ever type out a foot. You'd have to be an idiot, right? So that sort of stuff could be a bit like, oh, did that? Maybe it's just a mistake.
Exactly.
You don't want
It
to
was a real worry. And you were off camera because you were walking around. So we couldn't judge your facial expression or anything.
Yeah, it was very, it's very interesting. And so and I think we've had that before in these rooms where we haven't mentioned something that we thought was wrong or off. And then later on they were like, didn't you notice that this looks like it was written by someone who can't write very well? And I was like, I just thought you couldn't write, but I didn't want to mention anything, Which I suppose at this point we did almost have a little bit we were slanted. Look, it's this slanted writing on the window. And you're like, no, I just slanted that.
That's true.
I'm so sorry.
That's the one, that was handwritten in an awkward space.
Yeah.
There was no way I was getting that to not be slanted.
Man.
Yeah, it's always very, and it's very that's always sort of the risk when you do these. It's sometimes when we have the solution to a puzzle, and you kind of be like, well, I'll try this, but that shouldn't be right, and they're like, yeah, it is, and I'm like, oh, okay, sorry, I apologize. I guess it should be right.
Yeah.
Which is always a little bit tough. Can I say that you're red herring? How dare you include the word Hanover to really make it seem like an actual clue?
That did hurt when I saw it. When I finally decided band, synonym, ring, I hurt.
The red herring puzzle was not an original element of this room. I had just a mention of the pill bottle and as flavor text for you can take the pills.
Oh.
The one in red I don't think was even in the original version of this room. I forget how I got to the door code without that, but one of my playtesters suggested making that into a red herring.
Brutal. That was very upsetting. Mission
I
accomplished.
think there's the line where I
was a
say
mean puzzle.
it says Hanover, so it must be related to that,
Yep.
and it couldn't not be.
Yep.
It says Hanover. Well, no, look, the whole thing came together really well. The only problem I have is that my drawing, I put everything in the bottom, expecting there to be way more in the north, and there was only one shower. And so my room looks very unbalanced. Whereas yours, Danny, looks fantastic. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on and running the room. It was look, we didn't take 4 hours, which is good.
You took about 2 hours going through the room,
I
so
think
it's good time.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming and running us through it. Danny, is your bathroom going to be different enough? Is your next room going to be a different feel?
Very, very much so.
Oh, good.
I find it funny. I can't think of a similarity.
Shower? Toilet? Sink?
I don't
Mirror?
want to give too much away.
Is yours not set in a bathroom at all?
Danny's bathroom doesn't even have a door.
No door, no bath, no sink, no shower, no toilet.
I'll give you a locked door. That's what I'll say right now. But it's quite remarkable that there was no crossover whatsoever.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming and running the show. And thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the third Alex's Bathroom saga. Now, I will say, that doesn't mean that if you're going to write more rooms, you have to write a fourth one, everybody. If you want to submit a fourth one, you can just write your own. But you could also write a fourth one. Who knows? We can continue on until Alex's Bathroom is all that we'll have an entire Alex's Bathroom season of all
good God.
bathrooms. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to help support the show, tell people about it, spread the word, jump into forums and Reddit posts and real life conversations and be like, hey, everyone should be listening to Escape This Podcast. And you can also help support us on Patreon. Anybody at any level can appear as an NPC in one of Danny's rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Alex and Jimmy were named before we had patron donors, so
Yeah.
no one's making a reappearance in this one. Otherwise, there's bonus audio. You can listen to playtests and cryptic crosswords and 2-minute mysteries and a whole bunch of ridiculous fun stuff on the Patreon. Every week there's a new audio episode up for people who donate at least $5. There's vlog reaction things for the $10 donors where we react to escape rooms in popular
We've got
culture.
to do another one of those soon.
Is the biggest thing that we're doing at the moment. And there's a whole bunch of fun stuff. There's trivia and other cool things. There's a choose your own adventure that Danny's writing that's probably coming to a close soon.
I mean, ideally.
So thank you everybody who supports us there. We don't run ads on the show. That's the way that we keep the show being a job. So thank you everybody for supporting this and supporting podcasting in general. Thank you again, Das, for coming on and running the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, bye everybody.